Welcome. Today I'm going to be looking at paper P7 and the highly examinable area of risk. Now, I hate to start with a negative, but the P7 paper has traditionally had a very bad pass rate on a very regular occasion. And one of the big problems seems to be risk questions. The problem is not technical, it is practical. Students don't seem to understand what different types of risk actually mean, or if they do understand it, too many are not translating that understanding by putting it into their explanation of the actual risks that are going on in the question. So it's all about explanations. Let's first look at audit risk. Of course, audit risk is the risk that the financial statements are materially misstated, otherwise known as financial statement risk, and that the auditor's tests fail to detect those misstatements, otherwise known as detection risk. And as you're probably aware, financial statement risk, the risk of material misstatements, can itself be split up into inherent and control risk. The key, as I said before, is explanations, and your explanations of risk must be in risk language. What does that actually mean? Well, if you're explaining a financial statement risk, a risk of material misstatement, then make sure you explain that there is a potential material misstatement. More on that in a second. If it's a detection risk, make sure you're explaining why the auditor might have problems detecting a misstatement. Financial statement risk is easily the most important element of audit risk. On most risk questions, when audit risk comes up, most of the answer is going to be financial statement risk, not detection risk. In addition to that, the P7 examiner regularly asks questions that are just financial statement risk, meaning detection risk is not involved at all. There are, in fact, only 3 types of financial statement risk, because whatever is in the financial statements, the numbers might be overstated, or the numbers might be understated, i.e. too low, or the disclosures might be under-disclosed. There's not enough detail in the written parts of the financial statements. To demonstrate your understanding of financial statement risk, make sure, firstly, that you use one of these words in your explanation. So try to use words like overstatement, understatement, and under-disclosure. And if you can't tell if a number might be too high or too low, you're just concerned that they might get it wrong, use the word misstatement and cover both angles. And if we're talking about material misstatements in a set of financial statements, surely there must be at least one accounting standard that is relevant to your argument. So mention the accounting standard. Don't leave it out. You need to understand that the P7 exam is not just about testing your audit understanding. It also tests your understanding of the accounting standards, because a good auditor cannot check a set of accounts if the auditor doesn't understand the accounting standards that should have been followed in preparing those accounts. Let's now look at a good example, a well-explained example, showing an explanation of a financial statement risk. In this case, something to do with a brand. In the explanation, you can see I've underlined some of the key points. The word overstatement is underlined, and the relevant accounting standards have been underlined, because those are the key parts of your explanation. You may also notice that it's quite a long explanation and quite detailed. Again, a lot of P7 students don't seem to understand that to explain things properly often needs quite a few words, and typically more than just one sentence. But as long as you structure your explanation around the things I've underlined, your explanation should be good enough to earn some marks. Now let's compare that with the same issue badly explained. Now when you look at this explanation, it might be quite difficult for you to understand why it's bad. I mean, what's being said is correct. If you've got problems with your brand, of course the business will suffer. But that's not the point. This explanation is a business risk. It's explaining it from the business's perspective. If the question asks for financial statement risks, you need your explanation to be from the perspective of the financial statements. The explanation on the screen at the moment makes no mention of the financial statements at all. As such, it cannot be a financial statement risk. And unfortunately, that means that despite the fact it's correct, it's going to earn absolutely no marks whatsoever. In conclusion, practice is the key here. The more you practice explaining financial statement risks, following the formula that I've shown, the more it will become natural, second nature, and you'll do it without thinking. But for safety, on exam day, before you go into the exam hall, remind yourself of this key exam technique point and tell yourself, I must say overstatement or understatement or underdisclosure. One final thing I need to add. In a recent article, the P7 examiner has made it very clear that from the June 2012 sitting onwards, she's not going to use the term financial statement risk in the requirements. Now, she has used that term a lot in the past, but instead of using the technical term financial statement risk, from now on, she's going to ask you to describe the risks of material misstatement. It's the same thing, just different words. So everything I've presented to you in this short video still is very, very true. But she won't use the words financial statement risk anymore.